for the gate to open to get in the show. My plan was to be there early, but traffic was...
Good evening to all. Thank you for joining me. It's a discussion on politics. Lots going on in our nation, and it's getting and heating up as the time goes on. This is a very interesting week for Guyana. Troubling times also. We've got to pay very close attention. Looking forward to our discussion tonight as we debate and analyze the issues of today, the politics of our nation. It's almost a comedy show. You know, I believe if you listen to the President Granger today, normally around the world, you have a president speaks, then the opposition leader will rebut and counteract any issues a president may have made. Today, we saw the opposition leader address the concerns of the GCOM chairmanship, and then later on, the president came to rebut what he said. So the president is already acting as the future opposition leader. Congrats, Mr. Granger. You're acting as the future opposition leader. One, you're submitting names to yourself for GCOM. The Constitution has not changed. The opposition leader, Dr. Jagdeo, has explicitly reminded you, the Caribbean Court of Justice has reminded you that they have not changed the Constitution. The Constitution says that the opposition leader submits 6 names to you, and you have to decide on one of those 6 names. They may have said to hammer out, try to get to some consensus, but at the end of the day, you submitting names to yourself is going back to a unilateral appointment. You submit 2 names, the opposition submit 4 and put it in a list of 6. You pick one out of the 2. That's equal to a unilateral decision. I don't believe that's what the court meant to say by hammering out. So you're acting, Mr. Granger, as the future opposition leader, and I'm glad that you're doing that. I'm proud that you finally accepted that role. Again, you're submitting names to yourself to make a decision. You're trying to disobey our Constitution. Constitution is very detailed. It outlines every single item that needs to be done. And I hope on the 12th of July, the Caribbean Court, hopefully they get a chance to watch the comedy that you're putting on to Guyana and to try to change the rules in midstream. One, you were told you were unconstitutional. You nominated and picked Justice Patterson. You submit the man name again, even though the court told you it was unconstitutional. Mr. Granger, I hope you're not becoming disillusional. Our nation, democracy is at stake. We've got a lot to look forward to in our country going forward. We have a great economic boom ahead of us. We cannot tolerate this nonsense that you are portraying to the nation and the world. You are portraying some nonsense, some comedy. Guyana about to move forward to a viable economy that's going to take care of all our citizens. The judiciary this week made a decision to arrest the Minister of Finance for failing to pay the bill. You didn't even let the system run its course. You decided to pardon the man before he even was arrested. You may have all executive rights to do that, but the court is being messed with. You are really acting worse than our known what dictatorship is all about. And that is a worrisome issue for all of us as Guyanese citizens. Regardless, if you're an APNU supporter and you're laughing that, oh, well, the president and the opposition are fighting and let's see who wins, be very, very concerned of what is happening around you. When you've got a president that can disobey the Constitution, interpret it the way he wants, go against the judiciary system, go against the Constitution in what's supposed to happen. Elections, naming the GCOM chairman. All those are critical issues that are signs of a troubling time, that Guyana is moving in an environment that we may laugh about today, but you and I and our children in the future will regret if we don't stand up to Mr. Granger and his disobedience to our Constitution. It has nothing to do with the opposition. It has nothing to do with any of us. Something clearly has taken place in our nation. The Constitution outlines what needs to get done. The judiciary system has been explored and exploited. Decision has been made. Yet, Mr. Granger believes he's above the law. And he will decide when and how he will make a decision. For him to go on national television and tell us he's submitting a name to himself of who he should pick. And I'm not speaking on behalf of the opposition, but I look at the names that Mr. Granger submitted. A majority of them were executives, members of the PNC. You cannot nominate a person or even suggest a person that is politically aligned as a party member to GCOM chairman, an independent body. Mr. Cascan, Mr. Stanley Ming, all of those I've served and worked with. And they are all executive members of the PNC. Other people we have seen on the internet that have worn APNU outfits. These are sworn candidates of the PNC that Mr. Granger blatantly submits to the opposition leader, telling him, send those names back to me. That's who I want to select. And I really have to applaud the opposition leader for his statesmanship. He has been very deliberate in his execution and his deliberation on the Constitution. He has outlined very clearly what needs to be done. The Caribbean Court has outlined very clearly what needs to be done. Our High Court has outlined very clearly what needs to be done. Citizens, Mr. Granger is disobeying the Constitution, the supreme law of our country. If we laugh and we allow that to continue, we will pay the price for the consequences that will happen to our nation. One, you've got an illegal government. So no contracts could be signed as of March 21st. No agreements with any foreign country. No funding from any foreign source, such as the UN, United States, World Bank, European Union, should be coming into our treasury after March 21st. We've got an illegal government that cannot execute. They're in somewhat of a caretaker mode. The Constitution says government will resign but remain in place in order to ensure that they're law and order. But when the term resign is, which is written in our Constitution, when resign is executed, resignation means that you have no more power. You're there maybe to stay and ensure that whatever is undertaking continues, so there's no breakdown in law and order. But the word resignation means in the Constitution, you have become illegal. You cannot execute a single decision moving forward. Mr. President, the same applies to you. You can name the GCOM chairman based on the names that is submitted by the opposition leader, only by the opposition leader. The opposition leader is being very nice by even listening and allowing you to throw a few names in the hat, but you embarrass your constituency by throwing names in the hat that you know that is not even allowed to be GCOM chairman. And for you to tell the nation a couple of days ago that you agreed with the court, that you made an unconstitutional decision with Justice Patterson, it was flawed, it was unconstitutional, and you turn around and submit the man's name again, even though you said it's history. That is, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, Mr. President, and I hope you're feeling well and you're not ill and your brain is functioning, because some of these decisions you're making is almost as a comedy. It doesn't make sense. And all our people, regardless whether you're an APNU supporter, regardless of whether you're a PPP supporter or any other supporter, the Constitution, we believe, must be followed. And the Caribbean Court will make their final decision on July the 12th. And I hope that you continue to follow those decisions. And I know that the Caribbean Court cannot and will not rewrite our Constitution. So you can know today what the Caribbean Court will tell us. They will tell us, follow the Constitution. This is what is outlined. Election within 3 months of a no confidence vote. We know we have to allow the court system to work its process. That has been done. It's been validated. Now, the only other decision the court can make is to say, get it done. Get it done, Mr. Granger. Why are you disobeying our Constitution? As I said at the start of the show, I'm proud that you're practicing to be the next opposition leader. But in order to do that, you still have to follow the Constitution. You've seen what is happening around you. You've got rampant crime going on in our nation. You've got the crime chief being investigated for crimes and corruption. You've got other important figures in your government paying for oil blocks that have no credibility, no experience in oil. Your close people sitting in your office is applying for the oil blocks. What they plan to do, get the oil blocks and then sell it to Exxon for multi-million dollars? They're applying for land across our nation, key land. Mr. President, Mr. Granger, something is wrong with your head, because if you are allowing and would not make a statement on the facts that is being distributed, not only by political figures, by the media, Kaieteur News have published with evidence what is happening in your office, and you have not once made a statement. You have not once made a statement to the nation about the cops you selected that are now being investigated for corruption. You have not once made a statement of the corruption going on in your office, where people in your office is getting land outside of the normal process. And when many people, 57,000 people, are waiting for house lots, and your ministers are going out with community activities, spending state resources, which again is illegal, and then they go to communities and tell them that they've got to wait another 18 months for a house lot. You have not given out a single house lot over the last 4 years in your office. Mr. President, I hope you're well. I hope something has not happened to your mental capacity, because these decisions are alarming to our nation. They are extremely alarming. You cannot continue governing our nation in this manner. We've got too much at stake. Guyana, democracy is at stake. We've got too much at stake for our future. Our children, our young people are depending on 2019, 2020 and beyond. This next decade is the decade that Guyana finally achieve what we have all dreamed, our forefathers have dreamed of. Guyana will experience in the next decade that future. And with that future, we need leadership. But you cannot destroy your country prior to new leadership taking over. And new leadership will take over. The world and Guyana are seeing what is happening around us. And we must not allow our country to to deteriorate any further. Mr. Granger, your team got to get on with it. Accept the fact that we've got to go to election. If you feel so confident that you have done so great in the last 4 years, and that alone is a laugh. But if you feel you've done so great, then call elections. Let's go to the polls. Let's debate. Let's the economist of Air Finale debate you as a historian. Let's Mr. Ali tell us how he plans to implement the productive sectors of our country, how he plans to create 50,000 new jobs, how do he plan to re-energize our economy by reversing your 200 plus taxes. What are you going to tell him? When he tells you in the debate, he is going to reverse the 200 plus taxes that will put disposable funds back in our pockets, will change our lives immediately. What are you going to tell him? Oh, it was the right thing to do? It was not. Our economy is not where it's supposed to be. The reason why we even have any growth is all those pipes that Exxon is buying that is coming into the country. So you've got that false sense of growth when actually the real growth is almost negative 1.3 in our economy for 2018. 2019 is not going to see any better. You're spreading lies about the NASDAQ report that says we are the fastest growing economy. They did not say that. They said we will be the fastest growing economy once oil starts coming out of the ground. We've got to look at changing our nation going forward. Now, Mr. Granger, the historian of yourself is not going to take us in the future. We need the young generation to finally take control of our land, and that's what the PPP has put together. I'll take your phone calls tonight. If you have any questions for me, there's a lot happening around us. I believe when you have the executive body that can mess with the judiciary system, that is when the international community wakes up and pays attention, because the judiciary system is independent. When the president goes in and tries to destroy it, and then, what is sad about all of this, we have, the issue with the finance minister going to jail for not paying a settlement to the company that won. After couple of years, that settlement was not paid. Why would GRA come out today or yesterday with a tax bill equivalent to what they pay out? They did not know in the last 2 years that the company owed that much taxes? How did that come out today? Yesterday, the day the finance minister was supposed to go to jail for not paying the settlement, GRA comes out with a bill similar to what they're supposed to pay the company after years that the settlement wasn't paid. We've got a system, everyone, that this is not fair. You can't, I feel sorry for that company. Now we're going to have to fight with court to say that they not owe, $500 million worth of taxes. Why not did that not come out prior to the argument that Mr. Jordan was going to go to jail? Let me take your phone call. Yes, good night.
Good night, sir. How are you?
Good.
I hear your comments as well. Very excellent. My contribution is that I feel, Mr. Granger, you have to go and do check-up again. This man being now working your tax on internet, tomorrow you tax the next thing, and tomorrow, nobody has been put forward for the countryman, national team, or what with them. And this man will respect himself. He's going to marry from himself, or he's going to marry for the TCG ruling, and come 12 again, in the next story again. So, Mrs. Man said to it tomorrow, they work can we California, and this man have no marry for the people in Ghana, and we TCG ruling, why and tax and TCG was
yes.
In Ghana.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. End of the day, Mr. Granger is disrespectful to our nation. As a president, he has disrespected Guyana. Our sovereignty, our laws, our citizens. Mr. Granger has disrespected our nation by failing to uphold the Constitution of Guyana. Yes, hello.
Good night.
Good night.
How can Mr. Granger fixated him when he is not fit to do it. The opposition was to do it.
Yes, thank you. As I said earlier, Mr. Granger is acting. He's practicing. The writing's on the wall. He will be the next opposition leader come election. So he's showing how he will submit names to the opposition. Imagine the president is submitting names to the opposition leader when the Constitution said the opposition leader submits names to the president. Mr. Granger is all over the board. I think something mentally has gone. His capacity to understand the reality of what is wrong him, as one of the callers said earlier. He says something today, he says something tomorrow and yesterday, and they are not coherent. They are not coherent. Yes, hello. Hello? Not coherent at all, because the messages are not consistent. And a president has sworn to uphold the Constitution of Guyana. Hello, can I help?
Hi, good night, sir.
Good night.
Oh, is it Mr. Bridget and Paddy Jordan, man? He is not the president of the country any longer. The man is not president any longer in this country. Oh, yeah. Man. He's supposed to get jail.
Yes, the Constitution says the president and his cabinet must resign after no confidence vote. But he stays on until a new president is sworn in. But his powers to execute anything, pardoning Mr. Jordan probably wasn't even part of the powers he would have had as a president that has been resigned. All those things will be challenged in a court of law. So Mr. Granger's exercise, I said, I believe something mentally has gone wrong. I don't have any qualms about saying that because his messages are not coherent at all. Hello.
Hi there, good evening.
Good evening.
You know, President Granger did not adhere to the law of the land, and they are not going to adhere to the court decisions. What needs to happen? The citizens of Guyana needs to take to the streets of Georgia come the 13th, shut the city down, and demand elections.
Thank you. I agree with the caller that we as citizens must stand up, regardless of your political convictions, regardless of which party you support. This is not a laughing matter. This is not a fight to watch at the political level. This is something each of us must be concerned. It's troublesome when you've got a government that were sworn on a Bible, on the Quran, whatever, to uphold the Constitution of our nation and fail to do it. That is breaking the law. That is jail time. That is jail time for that to happen. And I agree with the caller. We've got to stand up, whether we take to the streets, whether we take to our Facebook, whether we go and talk to our neighbors, whether we get involved politically. Those are all things we must do. Hello.
Hello, good night.
Good night.
If the president or the president and the cabinet resign, who will swear in that colony?
The swearing is done by the Chancellor of the Judiciary. It has nothing to do with the President and Cabinet. The Constitution is clear. No, folks, we cannot debate this. We did not write the Constitution. The Constitution says government is resigned, President and Cabinet. Election must be held within 3 months of a no confidence vote. The President stays on until a new government, a new President is elected, just to make sure law and order is in place. He cannot make any new decisions. He cannot finance anything. He cannot have a new budget. None of those things can happen. He stays on as part of law and order that stays in place. Hello.
Good afternoon, Peter.
Yes.
It may appear as if the government is here, there, and everywhere, and there is chaos order, no order to what they're doing. But I'm firmly of the belief that it's a careful strategy, not the whole election, not this year, not next year.
But that's dictatorship. That's dictatorship. That's not even brewing. What they have done so far is dictatorial. When you can ignore a constitution, that is not a democracy. The international community got to be well aware. All our citizens got to be aware. So thank you.
Dictatorial policy.
Yes. So they cannot, no matter what they do, as one caller says, we've got to stand up, regardless of our political conviction. I'm telling all APNO supporters, this is not a laughing matter. You too will pay the price for dictatorship. Under Burnham in 1980s, regardless of your race, color, texture of your hair, all paid the price. All paid the price in 1980s, 70s, and 80s. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of people left our shores because of dictatorship, because of economic decline. All of them left under dictatorship. So watch what is happening today. If you continue to allow Mr. Granger to relive the 70s and 80s, which is what he's doing, you will and I will pay the price. Hello.
Good night.
Good night.
We need to go on the road to protest and shut this country down. No business or nothing. We gotta go. We gotta get rid of the government. Serious. I'm tired of this. We need to go on the road and stop talking. Let's go on the road and protest.
Thank you. Thank you. And you know, we all believe in peaceful voice protests. We all believe that every citizen have a right. Whether we stand on a street corner, we stand on a television station, we go in front of the president's office, we stand in front of the Marriott, we stand in front of the embassies and tell them Guyana is under siege. The fact that this government is dictatorial, they are disobeying the laws of our nation, and as citizens, we must stand up. Hello. Yes.
I think every caller has made their opposition there. I think that the dictatorship should stop. We need to come out and support. We're doing peaceful protesting because in those times they do a lot of robberies, a lot of bonding place, but we do peaceful protesting. And this thing is coming direct from Mr. Harmer. Understand?
Yes.
I think we should look at each other as with love and unity, and we should come out and support.
I agree. And that's why I said, regardless of your political convictions, APNO supporters, I'm telling you, I lived in the 70s and 80s. A lot of your brothers and sisters left the shores of Guyana because of dictatorship, because of the economic decline, because of people failing to follow the Constitution. We are right there again in 2019. We're going into the best decade of Guyana future. And you are going to allow people that, one, don't understand economics. Mr. Granger doesn't understand a clue of, you've never heard him outline his vision for a nation in terms of what Guyana could look like in the next decade. You have not ever seen his finance minister, who is a basic accountant, outline the future. They talk about a good life. They talk about great life. They talk about great salaries for themselves, but they've never outlined how they will make your life better. And the only way to do that is by putting an economic plan, an integrated economic plan, such as Mr. Ali and the PUP manifesto has outlined, an integrated plan that looks across all our sectors, look across the future of our oil, look at our human resources, look at the influx of foreign investment, look at what we would generate foreign income, how would we improve our manufacturing through lower costs of energy. That is what is going to take Guyana in the next decade, and that's what the PPP manifesto is outlining. That's what you've got a young economist that is going to lead that charge. That is the future of the next decade. Let's concentrate on that. This dictatorial issues that we are faced, let's make it short term. Let's stand up, as every caller has said, stand up and do not let this go any further. Hello.
Good night.
Good night.
I support the two callers that call yourself.
Okay.
Go out and make demands. Mr. John Hill, and the people are too much. And allowing the people to do because the people see that they will be talking and not doing anything. Right? If you make a demand and you go forward, then because Mr. Green should claim that he is above the law what he did yesterday.
Yes, yes.
He's completely above the law. And he's showing that he can do what he feels like to do in the country because some people should know who he is. You should know what was going on in the 80s. You should think yourself to know your planet. And if foolish young people know, tell them that is the honest life. You can sell all over the world. It's all right. Name of the charges back to nothing.
Yes, thank you. Definitely, the PP and ordinary citizens held a peaceful protest outside the president's office. Thousands came out in the rain, led by presidential candidate Mr. Ali, Dr. Jack Dio, a lot of folks standing up for what is right. These are not protests because you disagree with Granger or you dislike the government or you did not vote for them. This is about the reality of our nation, the future of our country. Every young child growing up wants to see democracy upheld in any nation. Guyana is no different. We must move forward. Take one last call and I've got to close the program. Hello?
Hello, Granger is performing a bloodless coup.
Yes, I agree. Thank you. Mr. Granger needs to understand this is not in the military anymore. He cannot take Guyana. He cannot control Guyana. Democracy will stand. We will stand with our brothers and sisters around the country. We will garner international support and ensure that our Constitution is upheld. And we hope the Caribbean Court outlines whatever they need to do. But regardless of it, the Constitution is the supreme book of our nation. It says election should have been held March 21st. The government is illegal. No contract should be signed. No money should be spent outside what has been approved. And that's what all of us want to see is our Constitution stands and all of us get a chance to go to election, make our decision, vote for the best candidate, the best future. And I can tell you, I'll say it and end of the program. You put a historian of 70s and 80s, Mr. Granger, who wants to live in the past, who doesn't understand economics, who believes in dictatorship, who has an idol that is gone, that has took Guyana down a path of no return, to a future of Mr. Irfan Ali, an economist, passionate, young, educated, experienced, ready to take our country forward in the next decade. And the next decade is about you, young people. It is about you, the forefathers who have dreamt that their future will be this that we have finally at our fingertips. Let Guyana move on. Thank you for joining me. And I look forward to our discussion this Saturday at 12:30. And I hope that you are ready to stand up for democracy, stand up for our Constitution. The choice is ours. The question is, do we have the courage to fight for democracy? I do. I hope you do too. Thank you for joining me. God bless.